My name is Lucas. I am 42 years old, and for most of my life, I've been the quiet figure in the background, trying to carve a space for myself in a world that rarely acknowledged me. I'm the middle child, sandwiched between an older brother, Derek, and a younger sister, Emily. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that being the middle child means being caught in the crossfire of everyone else's attention. Derek, my older brother, was always the golden boy, the one who could do no wrong. From the time he was a child, he excelled in everything. Academics, sports, social life, he was the one everyone looked up to. He had the drive and ambition that made him the natural leader of our family. People adored him, and my parents expected nothing less than perfection from him. He had it all figured out, or at least, that's what it seemed like. He was the kind of guy who had big plans and followed through on them with ease, and naturally, that left me to clean up the messes he didn't want to deal with. Then there was Emily, my younger sister. She was charming in the way that only a younger sibling could be. She had that innocent yet captivating nature that made people want to protect her, to dote on her, no matter what she did. She was always praised for her cuteness, her energy, her ability to brighten a room. She never had to work hard for attention. It came to her effortlessly. And there I was, stuck in the middle, trying to make my own mark, but constantly overshadowed by the brilliance of my brother and the allure of my sister. I wasn't the smart, charming, or flawless one, but I was the responsible one. I was the one who quietly worked behind the scenes, the one who held things together when everything seemed to be falling apart. I got good grades in school. I kept my head down, and I did what was expected of me. But no one seemed to notice. It was as if I were invisible in my own family. I was the dependable one, but I was never celebrated for it. Growing up in our small town in Ohio only made this feeling more apparent. Everyone knew everyone's business, and somehow, my business never seemed to matter. My family wasn't poor, but we weren't exactly wealthy either. We got by, just enough to keep up appearances. And in a town like ours, appearances meant everything. I had my dreams, sure, but they seemed irrelevant against the backdrop of my family's expectations. I wanted something different, something bigger. I had a business idea that I believed in, deeply an online platform that sold sustainable, eco-friendly products, something that could make a real difference in a world obsessed with cheap, disposable goods. But when I shared it with my family, they laughed. My brother, Derek, laughed the loudest, dismissing it as a pipe dream with no real potential. My sister, Emily, just rolled her eyes, as if the idea itself wasn't even worth her time. The disappointment hit me hard. For once, I wanted them to see me, to take me seriously. But instead, I was met with mockery and dismissal. In those moments, I felt small. It was as though, no matter how hard I worked or how much I believed in myself, I would never be enough to break through the mold they had placed me in. I was the middle child, the responsible one, but the one that no one really noticed. It hurt, deeply, but I didn't let it stop me. Despite their laughter, I knew I couldn't just give up. I wasn't going to let their opinions define me. I would prove them wrong. And maybe, just maybe, one day, they would see me for who I truly was. Years passed, and my idea, the one I still held close to my heart, remained on the back burner. The weight of family expectations and my own insecurities kept me from pursuing it. But as time went on, my life took an unexpected turn. I had a job I didn't love but paid the bills. I had friends, but nothing that truly fulfilled me. And then came the day when everything changed, an event that would shake the very foundation of my family. It all started with Derek's wedding. The build-up to it had been intense. As weddings often are, the entire family was involved in the planning. But it felt as if Derek and his fiancée, Lisa, were the ones pulling the strings. They had chosen a lavish venue in downtown Cleveland, a historic ballroom that could hold over 300 guests. The cost alone was staggering $100. $10 for the venue, catering, and decorations. It was a spectacle of grandeur, designed to impress and leave everyone in awe. But I wasn't invited to play a role. I was simply one of the many guests. No special mention, no meaningful gesture. Nothing that made me feel like part of the family. I wasn't in the bridal party. Not even on the list for a special seat. In fact, I found out only a few weeks before the wedding that I was seated at the very back, an afterthought, when I asked Derek about it. His response was a dismissive, "We're trying to keep it intimate." The ceremony itself was a blur. Derek stood at the altar, smiling his signature smile, charming, confident. The golden boy, as always, Lisa, stunning in her designer gown, stood beside him, and there I was, in a sea of faces, invisible, as the vows were exchanged. I couldn't help but feel a pang of bitterness. They were celebrating their love, but I was lost in the background, a ghost in my own family's life. But that wasn't the worst part. After the ceremony, during the reception, I was walking around, trying to make the best of it, when I overheard something that made my blood run cold. Lisa, Derek's new wife, was talking to a group of people, including some of the family friends. She was laughing, her voice high-pitched and sweet, but her words cut through the air like a knife. "You know, I never really understood how Lucas could live with herself," she said. "She's always so quiet, so unremarkable, the middle child, right? Always just there, but never really a part of anything important. It's honestly kind of sad." The laughter that followed felt like a slap to the face. I was standing just a few feet away, my hand frozen around my wine glass. How could she say that? How could she speak about me so casually, so callously, as if I weren't even human? I didn't confront her. Not then. Not in front of everyone. But the sting lingered. I had been dismissed, not just by my brother, but now by his wife too. It was a public humiliation that I would never forget. As the evening wore on, something worse happened. Derek approached me, his face suddenly serious, almost apologetic. I thought maybe he was going to say something about the seating arrangement or the way Lisa had treated me. But instead, he handed me an envelope. "I need you to help me with something," he said, his voice lower than usual. "Dad's company is in trouble. I've been keeping things afloat, but we're running out of time. I need you to cover for me. Help me keep the creditors at bay until I figure things out." I looked down at the envelope. Inside was a check, $200. Dollars. It was a sum I couldn't ignore, but I couldn't understand why Derek, the man who had always been in control, was asking me for this kind of help. He had always been the one who took charge, who made the decisions. So, why now? Why at the wedding? Of all places. Why this? "You need to explain what's going on." "Derek," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "what's happening with the business?" He hesitated, his face showing signs of strain I had never seen before. "I've been investing in some risky ventures, and I might have taken out some loans that weren't exactly approved. The business is losing money fast. Lucas, if you don't help, everything's going to crash. We're going to lose it all." The words hit me like a freight train. My father's business, the one he had worked tirelessly to build, was on the brink of collapse. And Derek, my older brother, the golden child, had been siphoning money from it for years. He had hidden debts, disguised them as reinvestments, and lied to everyone, including our father. By the time the truth came out, it was too late. Derek's voice grew softer. I didn't mean for it to get this bad, but it's too late now. I'm begging you. Lucas, help me save this. I looked at the check again. $200. Dollars. It was a substantial amount of money, more than I had ever imagined I would have at my disposal. But the real question was, should I help him? Should I risk my own financial security to save the business he had ruined? That night, I couldn't sleep. The wedding, once a moment of celebration, had turned into a painful reminder of everything I had been overlooked for. Derek had taken advantage of the family, and now he was asking me to save him from the mess he had created. It was a betrayal on every level, and I felt trapped, caught between loyalty to my family and the knowledge that helping him would only reinforce my place as the one who was always expected to fix things. The pain of that moment was overwhelming. I realized I had been living in the shadow of their expectations for far too long. The same family that had never truly seen me was now asking me to fix the very problems they had created, and no matter what I chose, I would never be able to escape the roles they had forced upon me. The reception was still buzzing with laughter and clinking glasses, but for me, it all felt like a blur. My mind was spinning as I stood there, the weight of what I had just learned about Derek and the business pressing down on me like a ton of bricks. The check in my hand felt like a shackle, a symbol of everything I had spent years trying to escape: the suffocating expectations, the manipulation, the unspoken assumption that I would always be the one to clean up the mess. It was too much. It was finally too much. The sting of humiliation from Lisa's words still lingered in my chest. She had never respected me, had never even considered me worthy of respect. But Derek, he was different. He had always been my brother, my protector. He had been the one I looked up to when we were younger, the one I trusted to have my back, to know that he had been lying, hiding debts, draining the family business for his own gain. It was a betrayal I hadn't been prepared for. And now he was standing there, asking me for help, asking me to save him. The nerve. I could feel the bile rising in my throat as I looked around at the other guests, all caught up in their celebration, oblivious to the chaos unfolding beneath the surface. I was disgusted by the situation. By the way, Derek had turned his wedding into a theater of lies and deception, and I was disgusted by myself for even considering helping him. I felt a sharp sense of shame that I had let myself be treated this way for so long, shame that I had allowed myself to be invisible in my own family, always in the background, always the one who was expected to pick up the pieces when things fell apart. Why was I always the one to be overlooked? Why was it always my responsibility to fix things that weren't my fault? I thought back to all the times I had been sidelined in my family, times when my achievements were downplayed, when my ideas were dismissed, when I was told to just get over it. I remembered the time I had presented my business idea to my family, hoping they would support me, only to be met with laughter and condescension. My brother, Derek, had called it a pipe dream, while my sister, Emily, rolled her eyes and moved on to the next conversation as if I hadn't said anything at all. They had never once believed in me, not when it mattered, and now Derek was asking me for help. The hypocrisy was overwhelming. I clenched my fists around the envelope, the check inside now feeling like a symbol of everything I had been forced to endure. $200. Money I could never get back. Money that would only prolong the cycle of dependency and manipulation that had kept me stuck in their shadow for far too long. I wasn't going to be part of that any longer. I walked away from Derek, and I walked away from the reception, my heart pounding in my chest. As I made my way to the exit, I could feel my whole body shaking, not from the cold, but from the intense emotional weight of what I was about to do. I wasn't just leaving a party, I was leaving my family. I was cutting ties. The door slammed shut behind me as I stepped outside into the cool night air. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision settle over me. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew that I couldn't stay in that toxic environment any longer. I couldn't keep allowing myself to be treated as if I didn't matter. I couldn't keep sacrificing my own happiness for the sake of a family that never truly saw me. I didn't look back. The next few days were a blur of emotions. I felt angry, betrayed, and heartbroken all at once. But there was something else, a sense of liberation. For the first time in my life, I was free to make my own choices, free to pursue the dreams that had been crushed by the weight of family expectations. I went back to my apartment that night, the one I had kept on the outskirts of the city for the past few years. I had never truly felt at home there, but now it was the only place where I felt like I could breathe. I sat down at my kitchen table and opened my laptop. I didn't know where to start, but I knew that I had to begin. I couldn't keep waiting for permission to live my life. I had $50,000 saved up from a small investment fund I had started on my own money that I had been putting aside for something important. I didn't even hesitate. I put everything into my business idea, the one they had mocked, the one they had called a pipe dream. I set up the website, ordered the first batch of sustainable products, and began working on building the brand, every penny of that $50. So no dollars went into it. I knew it was a gamble, but it was the only way forward. The first few months were grueling. There were moments when I doubted myself, when I wondered if I had made the right choice, but there was also something else, a fire inside me that I hadn't felt in years. I wasn't just building a business, I was building my own identity, my own future. I stayed away from my family. They tried to reach out, but I ignored their calls. I couldn't bring myself to deal with them, not after what Derek had done, not after the years of being invisible in my own family. I knew that cutting ties with them wasn't a decision I could ever take back, but I also knew that it was the only way I could find myself, the only way I could stop living in the shadow of their mistakes and finally start living for myself. As I worked on my business, I couldn't help but think about all the times they had underestimated me, all the moments when I'd been passed over, ignored, or ridiculed. But as the days passed, something inside me shifted. I wasn't just angry anymore, I was determined. I was going to prove to myself, and to them, that I was worth more than they ever gave me credit for. This was my chance to build something that was mine, something that no one could take away, and I wasn't going to let anyone or anything stop me. It was a bright Tuesday afternoon when everything changed. My business, which had been growing steadily over the past few months, was finally starting to gain some recognition. The first batch of sustainable products had sold out within weeks, and I had reinvested the profits into expanding my brand. I had been working day and night, sacrificing sleep and social life. But it was paying off. I was finally feeling the success I had always dreamed of. And then, just as I was starting to feel like my life was truly on track, an unexpected email appeared in my inbox, one that would change everything. It was from a name I had admired for years, Jason Farrow, one of the most influential investors in Silicon Valley. He had been following my brand for some time, tracking its growth. And now, he wanted to invest, not just a small sum, either $10 million. I stared at the email, disbelief flooding my system. I read it again, just to make sure I wasn't dreaming. $10 million. An investor like Jason Farrow could propel my business into a completely new league. I could finally build the platform I'd always envisioned. The one that would truly make a difference in the world. The idea that had been laughed at was now a reality. And the people who had doubted me would be forced to acknowledge my success. I couldn't stop smiling. This was my moment. It was all coming together. I picked up the phone to call my best friend, Leah, to share the news. But just as I was about to dial, my phone rang. It was Derek. I froze. It had been months since I had heard from him, months since I had walked out of that wedding. Cutting ties with my family, I had made peace with the fact that they would never see me for who I truly was. But Derek, hearing his name on my phone felt like a stab in the chest. I didn't want to pick up. I didn't want to hear him beg, to hear him ask for my help again, but something inside me pushed me to answer. "Hello," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Lucas, I need your help." Derek's voice came through, frantic and desperate. "Please, I know I screwed up. I know I've hurt you, but I'm begging you. The company is failing again. You're the only one who can save it." My breath caught in my throat. My mind was racing, and a cold knot tightened in my stomach. Derek, the same man who had mocked my business idea, the same one who had always belittled me, was now asking for my help. I could hear the desperation in his voice, and for a moment, part of me wanted to give in. Part of me wanted to be the person they all expected me to be, the one who always cleaned up the mess, the one who kept the family together. But then I remembered the pain, the humiliation, the years of being overlooked. I remembered how Derek had treated me like I was invisible. I felt a rush of emotions, anger, betrayal, disappointment. I had worked so hard to get to where I was, and now, here he was, coming to me for help. What gave him the right to ask me for anything after everything he had done? "Derek, I'm not your fallback anymore," I said, my voice shaking but firm. "I'm not the one who cleans up your messes. You didn't believe in me when it mattered, and now you're asking me to fix everything." I paused, the words hanging in the air. "Do you even realize what you're asking? You want me to come back into the chaos you've created, to save you when you've done nothing but destroy everything I've worked for." There was silence on the other end, and I could feel the tension building. I wanted him to understand, to feel the weight of what he was asking, but I knew he wouldn't. He never had before. "I'm not asking you to fix everything, Lucas. I'm just asking you to help," Derek finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Please, I know I messed up, but I can't do this without you." The desperation in his voice almost made me waver. I wanted to believe that he was genuinely sorry, but the truth was, I couldn't ignore what he had done to me, to our family, and to the business that had been my father's legacy. I was about to say something when a voice broke through, sharp, clear, and completely unexpected. "I think you're wrong, Derek," a small voice said. "Mom doesn't need to help you. She's doing fine on her own." I turned around, my eyes widening as I saw my son, Adam, standing at the edge of the room, looking directly at his uncle. Adam was only 9, but the fire in his eyes made him seem much older than his years. "What are you talking about?" Buddy Derek asked, looking confused. Adam took a step forward, his small hands folded in front of him. He looked directly at Derek and said, "You didn't believe in her. You didn't help her when she needed it. You made fun of her dream. And now you're asking her to fix your problems. That's not right." The room went quiet. I stared at my son, my heart swelling with a mix of pride and disbelief. He was right. Adam had always been observant. But this was something else entirely. He was speaking the truth, the one that I had been too afraid to say aloud. He had been watching all along, listening to the way his uncle spoke to me, the way my family treated me, and now, in his innocent way, he was calling them out on it. Derek's face turned bright red. He had no response, no comeback. He stood there, stunned, while I stood frozen in place, not knowing how to react. For a moment, I wasn't sure if it was the shock of the moment or the weight of what Adam had just said, but I felt something shift inside of me. For the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't the one who had been wrong. I wasn't the one who had been invisible. I had my son, the person who had always believed in me, who had always seen me for who I truly was. And suddenly, the weight of the past few months didn't seem so heavy. Adam's words cut through the fog of my anger and frustration, reminding me that I wasn't alone. I didn't need to fight for my place in my family anymore. I didn't need their validation. I had my son, my business, and my own self-respect. Derek, still stunned, turned to me. "Lucas, I don't know what to say. You don't need to say anything," I interrupted. "I've already made my decision." The room was still. Derek looked at me, then at Adam, and then back at me. He had no words left. He had come to me for help. But now, for the first time, he saw that I wasn't the same person he had once known. I had changed, and I wasn't going to be the one to save him anymore. I looked down at Adam, my heart swelling with love. "You're right, buddy," I said, ruffling his hair. "You're absolutely right." The moment felt like a victory, not just for me, but for both of us. Derek's eyes shifted, and for the first time in years, I saw a flicker of understanding in his gaze. It was as if he was realizing, too late, that I had value beyond what he had always assumed, that I was no longer the person he could rely on to clean up his mess. I wasn't the little sister anymore. I was the one in control. I sat down at my desk, staring at my phone. The message from Derek had rattled me more than I wanted to admit. He had been so confident, so sure that I would come back to save him. But I was different now. I had changed. The woman who had once been overlooked, the one who had been discounted and used, was no longer the same person. I had a life I had built on my own terms, a business that was growing. And for the first time in years, I felt like I was finally in control of my own destiny. But still, there was that knot in my stomach, the part of me that wondered if I should give in, if I should be the person I used to be, the one who would always come through for my family, even at the expense of my own happiness. That thought lasted only a moment. I knew I wasn't going to let myself fall back into that old role. I picked up the phone and dialed Derek's number. The phone rang a few times before he picked up, and I heard the usual rush of sound on the other end. It was clear he was still busy, probably dealing with the mess he had created. But I wasn't going to let that stop me. I wasn't his safety net anymore. "Lucas," he said, his voice strained. "Please, I really need your help. This is the last time I'm asking. You're the only one who can get us out of this. The company Dad's company is on the brink. You know how hard I've worked to keep it going. I never meant for things to get this bad." I took a deep breath, feeling the surge of emotions rise inside me. I wasn't going to let myself be manipulated again. This time, it was my turn to speak. "I'm not the same person I was. Derek," I said, my voice calm but firm, You took everything from me, and now you're asking for my help. What makes you think I would come back and fix what you broke?" There was a long pause on the other end. I could hear him breathing, probably trying to find the right words, but I wasn't about to let him off easy this time. "You didn't believe in me when I needed it most," I continued, my words sharp. "You mocked my business idea. You laughed at me, like I wasn't capable of anything. You were the one who left me in the dust while you went off and did whatever you wanted, never once looking back to see if I was okay. Now, after everything, you think I'm just going to drop everything to fix your mess." I could hear Derek's voice faltering now, as if he were searching for the right thing to say, but I wasn't done. "No, Derek, this time, it's my turn to build something on my own. You didn't believe in me then, and I'm not going to let you pull me back into the chaos now. I said, if you want my help, then you'll have to meet me on my terms, and those terms are simple. If you want to work for me, I might consider it. You'll answer to me. Though, no more pretending I'm the little sister. I'm the boss now." The silence on the other end was deafening. I could almost hear him trying to process what I had just said. This wasn't the Lucas he was used to. This wasn't the person who would bend to his whims or fix the messes he had made. This was a new Lucas, one who had spent years learning to value herself and her work. "You're serious?" Derek finally asked, his voice quieter now, almost hesitant. "I've never been more serious," I replied. "I've worked too hard to let anyone take that away from me. I've built something for myself. I'm not your safety net anymore." I could feel the tension between us, the shift in the power dynamic that had always existed in our relationship. Derek had always been the one in control. He had always been the one with the answers, the one who made the decisions, but not anymore. I had taken control of my life, and I wasn't about to let anyone take that from me. "I don't need you to fix my mess, Lucas," Derek said, his voice finally sounding resigned. "I get it. I've been an idiot. I'm sorry. I should have never doubted you. But you're right. I've always treated you like you weren't capable of anything, and that was wrong." I wasn't ready to let him off the hook just yet. I had been the one to clean up his messes time and time again, and I wasn't going to fall into that trap again. "I'm glad you see that now," I said, my tone still firm but a little softer. "But apologies don't fix anything. I've made my decision, and I'm not changing it. You need to figure out how to fix things on your own, and if you want to work with me in the future, you'll have to earn it. You'll have to prove that you're serious. No more treating me like I'm just here to pick up the pieces." The silence stretched between us, but this time, it wasn't awkward. It was a silence of understanding. Derek had always been the one in charge. But now, for the first time, I was the one calling the shots, and it felt damn good. "I understand," Derek finally said, his voice small. "I won't ask for your help again unless I can prove I've earned it. I promise." "Good," I said, my voice steady. "Now, I need to go. I have a business to run. But remember, Derek, if you want me to be part of your life, you'll have to show me that you respect me for who I am, not just when you need something." I hung up the phone, feeling a strange sense of calm wash over me. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I had finally set the boundaries I needed. I had stopped being the one who always took the back seat, the one who always cleaned up after everyone else. I wasn't going to be their doormat anymore. I was in charge of my life, and I wasn't going to let anyone take that away from me. As I sat there, reflecting on the conversation, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. I had finally found my voice. I had finally put my foot down and set the boundaries that were long overdue, and for the first time, I felt like I was truly living for myself, not for anyone else. And so, here I am, the one who was laughed at, mocked, and dismissed, the one who was always in the background, unseen and unheard. But today, I am no longer that person. I am the one people now turn to for advice, for direction, for inspiration. I am the one who took a risk, followed my passion, and built something real, something that matters. My business is thriving. And every day I wake up feeling like I've finally found my place in the world. Derek, Emily, and even my parents have all apologized in their own way. They've come to me, one by one, admitting their mistakes, asking for my forgiveness. Derek, with his usual charm, has tried to make amends. Emily, ever the one with the softer words, has told me how proud she is of what I've accomplished, and my parents, in their own quiet way, have expressed their regret for never fully seeing me. But I'm not interested in their apologies anymore. They didn't understand me when it mattered. They didn't stand by me when I needed them most. Their apologies feel hollow now, like empty words, what they never realized, what none of them ever understood, is that I didn't need their approval. I didn't need them to see me for who I truly was. Now, I live for me. I live for my own satisfaction, my own fulfillment. I don't need validation from anyone. I no longer need anyone to approve of my choices, my dreams, or my ambitions. And I've come to realize that this is what true freedom feels like. The freedom to make decisions for yourself. The freedom to chase your own goals without worrying about what anyone else thinks. And yet, as I reflect on all of this, I find myself asking, do we ever really need to be validated by others? Why do we seek approval so desperately? Especially from the people who never truly understood us. How much of our self-worth do we give away for the sake of family, friends, or society's approval? How much should we give before it begins to erode our sense of self? We live in a world that constantly tells us we need to meet certain expectations. We need to look a certain way, achieve specific milestones, and conform to social norms. We're told that our worth is measured by the opinions of others, the success we achieve, the recognition we gain. But I've learned the hard way that none of that defines who I truly am. My business is thriving. I've built it from the ground up, and it's finally becoming what I always dreamed it would be. I am happy. I feel like I've found my purpose. And with that comes a sense of peace I never thought possible. But there's always that lingering question, what is your worth? Is your worth determined by others? By the amount of success you accumulate? By the recognition you receive? Or is it something you build for yourself? Something intrinsic that comes from living authentically, from following your own path, regardless of what anyone else thinks. As I stand here, reflecting on everything that's happened, the betrayals, the struggles, the pain, and the triumphs, I realize that my worth was never dependent on the approval of my family or anyone else. It was always within me, just waiting to be recognized. I had to stop looking outside myself for validation and start looking within. The moment I made that shift, everything changed. So, what do you think? How do you measure your own value? Do you let the opinions of others define who you are? Or do you define yourself? And how much are you willing to give of yourself for the approval of others before you lose sight of who you really are? We all have our own journey to take, our own path to carve. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is to stay true to ourselves, to honor our own worth and never let anyone take that away from us. The question, as always, remains, how much of your value do you give away, and how much do you keep for yourself? The choice is yours.